homogeneous. Down by 2, 24 frames, negative 19 on block, plus 4 on hit, and it leaves a long strong counter hit. Oops, you gotta be a little bit closer. There we go. You can get more than that, actually. This is a little bit hard. Anyway, so at far range though, you get counter hit, you get down back plus 2 for 47. So you get a lot of damage on counter hit, plus on hit, leaves them full crouch. Spaces them are pretty far. This is a super far range low. This is about range 2.5, I'd say, maybe even range 3. Very far, hard to recognize, not because it's like fast. This is a really slow low, but it's not like a snake edge slow, but because it's it has really, really far range. So you can use this at ranges where the opponent does not expect it. So from here to here, you can all get hit by down back 2. So the range of it, so let's say range 0, right? There's so many options to me. Now if I space out a little bit, I still have a lot of those same options because of down back 2. I could still poke you from this range. I just don't have to do, you know, the generic ones. So now I have down back 2. So down back 2 also extremely linear compared to down back 4 and down 3. It is very, very easily stepped, but it is his power low. It is his really, really like hard-hitting low that he has, besides Emo Man. So this move is really annoying to pester opponents with. Using this move, you have to be brave, I say, because you have to use this with the mindset that yes, it is unpunishable, but I need to rack up damage to make my opponent scared and to end neutral faster. But it depends on how risky you want to play Noctis, but in my opinion, down back 2 is still good even though it is heavily punishable. It is because it is a move which conditions the opponent to be afraid of lows, and not so much be afraid of down back 2, but be aware that, hey, he's getting away with this launch punishable move, I should be blocking it, and then the mix-up forms there. So because of how rewarding it is to block, it becomes a move that is desirable to duck more often. So this scenario, while it's also good for Okazemi, down back 2 is just great to pester your opponents and make them antsy. So you use this a couple times, and then you could stop using it, and you have already accomplished what down back 2 could do, because it's so freaking annoying that he's throwing out such a move that it's launch punishable and it's so far range, and I should be killing him for it because he's just risking himself every single time for just a little bit of damage, only 23. So it forms a psychological mix-up in itself, I want to say. Down by 2 as well is also not low parryable, so you cannot low parry the move if the opponent's fishing for low parries. However, because it's not low parryable, doesn't mean it's not launch punishable, because the thing that's interesting is that both of his non-parryable lows are both launch punishable. So it's kind of a moot point in itself, but if they try to low parry instead of low blocking, then they're not gonna parry it because they're unparryable. The other one will be down 2-2, which I'll talk about. I don't know if I'll talk about in this video, but I'll say that it is pretty good for ending the round, this move. Both of them are. This is really risky to end the round, but just know that it is not parryable and has tons of range, so very good. It is, like I said, just to pester, annoy your opponent, get some damage in, and then make them really think about the low. Very, very good for conditioning. Moving on, we got down 4, we have Emo Man. Down 4 to 1, 1 plus 2. There's 38. I believe I've heard there's a just stream version where you don't mash it out, you get 42 instead of 38. But regardless, the special thing about his Emo Man, which is this is basically a very similar move to Paul's Demo Man, which is a 3-hit trip low. The differences between Paul's and his is that his has less range and worse tracking. It can be walked to the left, I believe, or even to the right, I think. And the thing is that it's actually hit confirmable and not as unsafe. Because if you do not trip this at clean range, it doesn't even trip at counter hit, I think. Yeah, not even counter hit. Well, actually, no, if I counter hit this, I think it'll still work. Not even, okay. So if you don't clean hit this, it's not going to work at all. But you can confirm that's not going to work, and you can do down forward, like, let's say, here. you could stop there, and it jails. So if you get hit by down 4, you cannot duck the second hit of Emo Man. And it is a negative 12, but has tons of pushback. So this is actually pretty good because it's hit confirmable, and it's pretty safe because it's a jailing high that's unsafe, but not that unsafe, and has a lot of pushback. However, you go all the way to the last hit, it's like negative 18 on block, and that's pretty much launch punishable. He does knock down. This is his strongest wall ender as well. If you knock down like this, doing a lot of damage, 66. The Okazami afterward is not that great because it leaves Noctis in really poor recovery. So you don't always have to do this because of just how negative it leaves Noctis. Like slow recovery. But if you want to deal a lot of big damage, that's what you do. Also, I don't think you can tech roll after you got hit by this because it leaves, I think it always leaves hard knockdown no matter what. So there is options there for you. I think, yeah, because if I just, let's see. Can't tech roll, it's gonna work it backwards. Yeah, it's working backwards. So that's another good thing about it. There are weird scenarios, actually, where if this hits on a weird wall angle, it'll actually lead them into the flop stun face down. I'm not sure if it's escapable or not. I haven't tested that. But you have to be prepared for those kinds of situations where they are knocked down that way. In general, Emo Man, this is his range 0 scary move, so if it Noctis is at range 0, Emo Man is a threat. However, because it has less range than Demo Man, because Noctis is a small guy, it's easily backdashed out of, so you have to be very conscious about where and when you throw out Emo Man in its midstream. It's a lot easier to force at the wall when the opponent's not going to be able to move as much, and his wall game becomes enhanced because he has that super really annoying low at the wall that knocks down. Also, Emo Man also floor breaks, which is different compared to Demo Man, so you can actually use that, I believe, as a launcher on the floor break shit. From Emo Man, we have up forward 1, which is Noctis' primary, one of his best get off me tools. That's not saying much because that's actually one of Noctis' strongest, weakest points, but at least he has something. So up forward 1 is a 14 frame counter hit launcher, high, plus 8 on hit, but has tons of pushback. Not tons, but some pushback. On block, it has more pushback, which is good because it spaces opponents out farther, which makes them get off Noctis. And on counter, it is a pretty strong launcher. Pretty good. You can do more than that. I could have carried to the wall. So up forward 1, you use it primarily to get people off of you, and when you think you can counter it. So this is probably his main primary counter hit tool because Noctis is not really a counter hit type of character, but his up forward 1 is definitely very similar to a Steve back 1, except it does not have the same tracking, and it's 14 instead of 13. It is safe, and it's only negative 4 on block and pushes out, so if opponent blocks this, you can back up, and you can bait some stuff. You can sidestep, do down 3, etc. You can still press buttons afterwards, just you can't really take advantage of turn. You kind of have to do something in response to what you think the opponent does. You gotta make a read. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Doesn't have good tracking. Someone's pressuring you, up forward 1. You think you can get a counter it, up forward 1. Don't spam it because it's a duckable high. So just be a little bit careful because it is baitable. But it does do a lot of damage. I like the animation where he stabs him in the freaking, like, jungular. Like, ugh, the big-ass sword. So it's pretty self-explanatory, not much to say about it. Probably one of the best things you could do when someone's pressuring you is try to hit upward 1. Okay, so we got down 1, which is his next move. And down 1 is a 17 frame mid that leaves full crouch for both opponents on block and on hit. Plus 4 on hit, and on block it's negative 3. One of the reasons I mentioned this move is that because it is a very big hitbox, it kind of hits like all in front of him, so it's very easy to get this move to connect. Also, it has pretty decent range, so it can space out really well, and this is probably one of his best ways into a full crouch mix-up, because on hit, it leaves them both crouching, and then if you space it out, you actually can't, the opponent actually can't like retaliate because their moves will whiff on you depending on the character, and then you get forced like a full crouch mix-up here, which is pretty good. On counter, I don't think it does anything more special. It's also just +4 and more damage. Another one of the best things about down 1 is that it has really good tracking to both sides. So this is one of Noctis' rare scenarios where he has a move that tracks really well in both directions. It's just a little bit slow at 17 frames. So it's, you know, you have forward 1, which is faster, so technically you would prefer to use that, but because forward 1 plus 2 is -9 and down 1 is only -3 and a mix-up afterwards with options afterwards, even if it's blocked, you might want to prefer to use that. However, I believe down 1 still loses to sidewalk, so because it's not that big of a hitbox, it doesn't track that well, so you have to be careful. Especially, I think the tracking gets worse the farther you are out from your opponent. So if you're point blank and you down 1 as they step, then you can catch them pretty well. But if you're a little bit farther out, it's a little bit harder to you know, track them. So if I can get this, there we go. There we go, yeah. It kind of hits awkwardly sometimes, but it does track pretty well. The reason I listed it in top 10 is because it is just a big mid that can be used pretty safely to throw out as long as you don't whiff it. That can be used to force reactions on the opponent, and it can force full crouch mix-up on hit. It's also, you know, it's just a safe mid too. And the next move we have is down back 1+2, which is a similar move to down 1, but I think this move is better. It starts with 15 frames, and the move is a hit confirmable mid-mid. Very, very hit confirmable, by the way. Yeah, very, very hit confirmable. And does 24 damage. It leaves +4 on hit, and I believe on block it's -7. I think both hits are -7, both this one and the next one. If this hits by itself, down back 1, it's 0. The new unique thing about down back 1 is that if you hold forward, you go into the roll mix-up. The roll mix-up is pretty self-explanatory. It's either a low that leads to this, or a mid that leads to this. They both do around 40 damage. It's about the same damage. The mid does more. The mid is also safer. They're both unreactable. You have to make a guess, but the roll does not have good tracking, and it's interruptible. But the good thing is that, like, the roll is very, very consistent high crush, and he does have evasive properties in it, so he can actually dodge some mids in it, which is great. He doesn't have to do the follow-ups out of the roll either. He could do down back 1 roll into nothing, which leads him to a full crouch mix-up. Down back 1 roll into standing. He just lets go of down. Or you can go into full crouch. Or not into full crouch. Whatever one you want. So down back 1+2 becomes a mix-up in itself, because you want to like block after down back 1, because if you try to press buttons, then the second heart parrot will hit you, and that gives me a mix-up at +4. But if you try to you try to contest down back 1+2, then I can do that. And if you respect it, then I can do a mix-up on you. Either I can do, you know, a regular mix-up, but this is not true frame data because it's like -7, but I can do the roll on you. And I don't even have to do the roll follow-up, so this is great for creating a lot of ambiguous setups, because it's a lot of timing-based, and like, what is he going to do? Is he going to do the roll? Is he going to do the mid? Is he not going to do anything? You know, it's a lot of mix-up potential out of down back 1. Also, entirely safe. Down back 1 and down back 1+2 are both very safe, so there's not a lot of risk to using it. Also, the unique thing about down back 1+2 is that it has probably one of the weirdest pickup properties in the game. You saw after this happened, the way that it floated him was really, really weird, and that is one of the weirdest things about Noctis, is that down back 1+2 has a very strange way of hitting people on Oki. If I leave the opponent grounded, I can actually pick them up sometimes. Like that. I think even on side. Yeah. Like, the move, if you stay down against Noctis mid-screen, you can get really messed up by down back 1+2. It is a move that I don't think is intended to work that way because of just how weirdly it can pick up opponents, but it is great for Okazemi if opponents are not moving, just because of how freely he can create combos out of that. It's also really amazing against characters with a lot of low-profile stances, like Xiaoyu, Yoshimitsu, Eddie, especially Eddie. This move is amazing against Eddie. So in general, it's a very multi-purpose move that doesn't really have a lot of risk to it. Stepping wise, I believe it tracks right, but it doesn't track left, which is most of Noctis' stuff doesn't track left. Track to the sidestep, doesn't track sidestep right. Well, actually, no, this one should track sidestep left, but not sidestep. I'm gonna test that right now, actually. So I'm not entirely sure, and I want to be sure. Sidestep left. Yeah, okay, so it doesn't track sidestep right like I thought. Good. Another reason to another reason to step right against Noctis instead of left. So moving on from down back 1+2, we have down back 1+2. Down back 1+2 and down 1+2, which are kind of similar, is his big ass great sword attacks. This move has tracking to the right side of Noctis, 25 frame startup, -16 on block, and 60 like a launcher on hit, probably one of his strongest launchers. I'll show a combo with it. Wow, 74. Whew, that's a lot of damage. I also could have wall carried too if I wanted to. So, Noctis is down back 1+2. You think, like, why would someone ever get hit by this? You actually would be surprised that you can actually catch people coming into your range with this one, because this is a range 3.5, maybe a range 4 move, and just how far that it hits. And so people coming in, they try to, you know, jab or whatever, approach, but you can suddenly hit them with this. Also, this move has a slight high evasiveness. You can, like, make some jabs and some highs with this move, but not entirely too consistent, but that has happened before to me. So, big ass launcher, lots of pushback, so some people can launch it. Noctis can actually launch his own down back 1+2, but it is safe from some people, but it is launch punchable by -16, so you have to be careful about some people's inputs. I'm pretty sure that Paul could probably death fist it on reaction, on block. Also, move does not track sidestep left or side walk right. Does track sidestep right though, and this move does hit grounded. So in situations like warp strike, you can use this, and the opponent can still get hit by that if they're on the floor. And try to get up kick, then they will get launched for it. Also great to just, like, let's say opponent, you knock them down and then they're gonna side roll. You can do that to them. You can walk up, down back 1+2, as well as walk up, down back 2. So both those moves are really, really great focus ending. The charge version is a little bit different. It does more damage, and on block it's about, I've heard it's about -8 to, I mean, that's not -8. Yeah, actually -8 to +2, depending on when they got blocked for it. So the frame data after it is sort of ambiguous. There's a little bit more damage, but no, the combo doesn't really change too much. You use this to create hesitation in the opponent, where they kind of stop pressing buttons because they don't want to get hit by it. And if they do get hit by it, then, you know, they tried to press a button to try and interrupt it, and they got launched for it. It's also really good at the wall, because if you charge this on Oki, person might be like, oh, well, now I can get up attack him because I can counter hit him. But if you space it out perfectly, you can bait a get up kick and then launch him. So primarily, this move is really good at keep out. Like, if someone's coming in, you can use this. Also really great on Okazemi, one of his best Okazemi moves, because it always hits grounded, very consistent. And it does a ton of damage. Great range to it. So if you've ever played Siegfried and Soul Calibur, this is probably a move that would be very, very, comfortable in Siegfried's move list. It's just a big ass sword swing that covers a lot of range and does a lot of damage. Downside, unsafe by a lot, so if someone blocks it, they can definitely dash in, do a mix-up, or if they have a far range -16 puncher, they can mess you up for that, or they can run up, do a mix-up. But in general, it's just very good to kind of throw out every now and then. Just have to be careful with its poor tracking and the fact that it's slow. Moving on, we have down forward 4-2. This is a move that I don't really see other Noctis players using, and I like it a lot. I compare it a lot to Bob's back 2-2, just not as good. It's a 14 frame mid kick into a high follow up, which but the high tracks really well. Doesn't track sidewalks too well, but it tracks stepping really, really well. And even in the scenario where if you block down forward 4, you can't step after down forward 4. If you are whiffing down forward 4 and the opponent is sidewalking, then down forward 4-2, the second hit, will probably whiff. But if you block the first hit, you cannot step afterwards because of the animation of down forward 4-2. It's also a sword, so it's actually not parryable. And it is -4 on block, plus 7 on hit. First hit is -7 on block, and plus 4 on hit. So it's actually the reverse scenario. It's actually pretty funny. So you use this as another scenario to force opponents to make a reaction, because on hit is a very, very free mix-up. 29 damage, good damage too. It's a fast mid, 14 frames, only 1 frame slower than down forward 1. Down forward 4 does not track very well, but the second hit does track very well. It's got pretty good range, about here, which is pretty decent. It's about a little bit more range than his down forward 1. And it protected by follow-up. So down forward 4 to 4, and down forward 4 to 2. Which is his up forward 2 and his up forward 4 out of down forward 4 2 respectively. Which this means that this is a very good tracking, low crushing high kick that's -5 on block at wall splats and knocks down, and this is another low crushing move, which it doesn't really low crush, it has like a low evasiveness. That is a launcher, which is -8 on block. Down forward 4 2 2 does not track very well, but down forward 4 4 4 down forward 2 4 tracks very well. So when you think about this scenario, how do you use this move? You use this, and they're afraid of the follow-up, because you don't know if they might. You don't know if you are going to use the follow-up or not going to use the follow-up. So in this scenario, you can use this as an ambiguous mix-up to use advantage of hesitation and light negative frames. -4 is on block, but there's a follow-up. So you can kind of move around, do some buttons afterwards, some movement, some low pokes, some side steps, some back dash, some forward dashes, whatever. And then if opponent's disrespecting your down forward 4 2, then start hitting with the follow-ups, which both the follow-ups are safe. So once again, you can kind of like have some leeway with how your opponent reacts to things. I think another thing that's common with the wall is that since this is really good at the wall, because the last hit of this wall splats, and the mid here is launcher, so you can still do a wall ender with that. And since if you try to direct the last hit, the mid will get you. So it's a mix-up in itself. So if you try to step the down forward 4 2, you can get hit by the down forward 2 4. If you try to duck the down forward 2 4, you can get hit by the down forward 4 2 2. Very confusing to say, I know. So it's a great mix-up in itself. You can actually, I think, get interrupted between down forward 4 2 and down forward 2 4. I'm not sure. I have to test that. Had me before, I think. No, you cannot. Okay, I thought you could, but you cannot. It's probably down forward 2 2 that you can get interrupted out of. So, very great move just to create a lot of hesitation and force opponents to respond to you. It's -4, so it's not the best on frame data, but because of the follow-ups, it kind of protects itself really, really well. And if it hits, it does a lot of damage. If the second hit counter hits, the last hit is guaranteed. I think only the high, not the mid though. Yeah, not the mid. The mid is never guaranteed unless they duck. If you counter the second hit, last hit guaranteed, wall splats, and you get a whole bunch of free stuff. Of course, the downside to this is that if you use it too much, the opponent will start ducking that second hit, and you can't use down forward 4 too much by itself because the frame data does not really allow it. It's -7 on block, so while there is, because you can't really delay this, but you can like sort of poke with this, but it's not like ideal frame-wise because the recovery is not that great. So it's kind of like if they start ducking that second hit, then you might want to start rethinking your options. Because you can start scaring them down forward 4, but it's not the best scenario, so you can start focusing on other pokes that you have. But for as long as the opponent does not duck the second hit of down forward 4 2, this is a very good move that kind of protects itself pretty well, I think. Also, but it does have port tracking. We're getting to the end here, and I'm going to talk about wall running 1+2, and then we're getting to his full crouch mix-up really quick, and then we'll probably end the video there. So we got his wall running 1+2. Let's see if I can do it at instant wall running. There we go. I've been training myself to do that pretty much with Noctis, because this is one of the things that if you are going to be a Noctis main, I think this is one of the things that you are going to have to learn how to do. Wall running 1+2 is one of his best moves because it is a natural hit launcher that does a lot of damage, hits grounded, +9 to 11 G on block, and it is a big hitbox, and it has a lot of range. And it low crushes, but it actually, you can jab him out of the air. But anyway, this is kind of like, I like to compare this to like a Super Dragunov Running 2, because it is very similar in that it's a lot of plus frames on block, mid, and it's a launcher. But this time, instead of counter hit, it's a natural hit launcher. So, like Dragunov, Noctis can force plus frame situations a lot by doing, you know, while running 1+2, running 1+2, running 1+2, etc, etc, etc. And it's a natural hit launcher on a solo launcher. I can do it. I can do it, coach. I can do it once in a while running 2. I can do it. Something like that. The wall angle was weird there, so I didn't really know what to do. But point is that you want to use this to approach as well as forward for 1+2. So these two kind of mix each other up, because while running 1+2 is very steppable, it's easily stepped, but because it's easily stepped, it's protected by forward 1+2, because these two things, they bounce off each other. Either you're going to try to like step hook strike, or you're going to try to step while running 1+2. So because of that, you're going to get easily hit by forward 1+2. So they think these two moves kind of bounce off each other, his long range approach moves. So in this scenario, while running 1+2 is used to set up mix-ups and create pressure. So I can do that, and then it's plus like 9 to 11. So now I can get free down back 2. I can get down back 1+2. I can get forward 1+2. Not that actually. I could get that. I could get sidestep 2. I could get, I can do anything I want after that, pretty much. Because Noctis's moves are slowish, though, there are scenarios where you might get like jabbed out of doing down back 2 after 4 or while running 1+2. But if your opponent is willing to press buttons after while running 1+2, then I would say hit him with forward 1+2, because that's a true tech trap, that's a true frame trap, and it stops him from stepping entirely. So, and it's safe. So that's probably one of the best options to Lex out of while running 1+2 to stop them from doing any kind of checks other than blocking, is to do forward 1+2. Because if they press something, counter launcher, if they try to step, they get plus framed into plus 9 to mix up, and if they duck, they get hit by it. So it's, and if it's blocked, only -9. So at least you have a chance to defend yourself. So a lot of really, really great stuff there. Especially, once again, is if you can condition your opponent to block down back 2 after while running 1+2, then once again you can start conditioning them again and start mixing them up with down back 1+2, or using forward 1+2. Another thing you can do, which is kind of risky, is you can do charge down back 1+2 afterwards, because you'll leave the plus frame state, but now the opponent, since they're out of plus frames, they'll probably try to attack you, and then they'll approach, and they get hit by charge down back 1+2. However, the opponent can just backdash, and that results in a scenario like you're gonna whiff, and that's bad. So, you know, it is what it is, but that's just like one setup that I've seen used before. And it hits on Okazami too. So while running 1+2 is really, really scary on Oki as well, because if you knock an opponent down and you wake up onto them with while running 1+2, it becomes harder to step, and if they don't step enough, they can get hit by it, because the hitbox is big. Even though the move is technically linear, there is a realignment, and the hitbox is huge, so it's very possible to get launched even though you try to step on wake up. And if you stay down, you get hit by while running 1+2, since it hits grounded too. So a lot of things going for this move. It's just the fact that it's slow. You can jab him out of it while he's in the air, but it's hard to react to, of course. You just have to be careful about how you use it, and it's linear. But since it's linear, it's protected by moves like 1+2 and forward 1+2, which are both really good. Honorable mentions to 1+2. 1+2 is slightly hit confirmable, double hitting mid, which has like range 4 range, another one of his longer range attacks. This is another one of his like don't step when you're far away from me moves, because he can do a 41 damage knockdown, high mid move that wall splats. But the second is -14. You can actually cancel 1+2 into 1+2 back and get into a -3 on hit and -9 or 8 on block scenario, which is safe. And you can sort of do mix-ups here because you don't know if you're going to continue because there's a built-in delay. But since the delay is like recognizable that you're stopping it, then I wouldn't take advantage of this all the time. there are rare scenarios where you can use 1+2 back and like create like a fake like range 0 mix-up, but you're not actually plus, so you can bait opponents into pressing something, but at the same time, it's like, well, it's not the most like guaranteed beneficial setup, so you use it, you know, sparingly. Also, 1+2 is hard to hit confirm. If it hits, you don't hold back. If it doesn't hit, then hold back. You can kind of press it in the middle if it doesn't work, but it's kind of hard to hit confirm. But it does do a lot of damage and it walks flats. Also, for combo's sake, 1+2 is one of his best far range through attacks. Not that far. You can still combo. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Warp Strike pretty much makes it so that you can always end combo with. You can always end a combo no matter where you are on the screen because of just how far it goes. Warp Strike also doesn't hit low profiles, so you have to be careful about using it. It's like AOP or Relax or, you know, grounded opponents or whatever. And then finally, the final move in the top 15 moves we got here is his full crouch down 4-2, which is very similar to Dragunov's down 2, except it only comes from full crouch. +3 on hit, start up to 20 frames, -13 on block, and it is plus like 16 or something on counter, +13 on counter hit, right? In this scenario, this tracks really well, but loses the sidewalk right, I think. And this is the primary cornerstone of his full crouch mix-up. This move is very annoying to get hit by because it's just so, like, it high crushes, it's very unreactable, and it, you know, it creates plus frames. It's actually one of his, it's the only low that he has besides down back 2 that creates plus frames. So, and especially with its counter hit, you get a super free mix-up. It also leaves Noctis again in full crouch, so you could kind of continue a full crouch mix-up. But this is the kind of thing where you kind of want to like get in their face and just apply the full crouch mix-up. There are transitions into it like down 1, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 4. Roll down. I think that's all of them. There's probably more. Oh, down 3, of course. Forgot about that. This board. So it's pretty self-explanatory why his full crouch down 4-2 is pretty good. Plus, tracks really well. Good on counter hit. On only -13. And if opponent starts trying to duck to block that full crouch down 4-2, then you mix in with several different moves. You could do wall standing 4, which is your safest option. You could do wall standing 2-2, which is your launcher. That does -14, and has a lot of range though. So you want to, like, let's say here, both full crouch down 4-2 and wall standing 2-2 is going to hit here. But you can't confirm wall standing 2-2, so you have to commit to a -14 launcher. Even if you do the first hit, you can't delay it, and the first hit is like punishable, and it's negative on hit, so you don't want to do that. Instead, there are the 3 best options I think out of full crouch for the full crouch mix-up is wall standing 3, and full crouch down 4-2, and up 4-3. All of these are about here in range, no, about here, yeah, about there. That's about, no, it's too far. Wall 4-3, about here. Yeah, about that's about the max range for all the moves. Well, the minimum range that the moves will connect. Although, I guess for up 4-3 would be the max range. But anyway, so we have a launcher that's only -13, does a lot of damage, low crushes. And we have a wall standing 3, which I've already talked about how good this is, and this is a hot kick basically, and it does more damage than a hot kick, but it's basically his hot kick. And we have wall standing 3. Why is wall standing 3 super good? Wall standing 3 is super good because it starts up at 14, and it's -9 on block, so it's safe. And it has +9 on hit into a nosebleed stun. If the opponent tries to hold down after the nosebleed stun, they'll fall down. But if they fall down after the nosebleed stun, try to slow that. They get hit by down 2-2 into a launcher, and that's unescapable. So it becomes a mix-up, because if the opponent doesn't want to duck, don't want to fall down to escape the mix-up from the nosebleed stun, they have to take a +9 mix-up. And that's pretty scary because, you know, once again, Noctis needs his high plus frame so he can do his slow move with impunity. So this becomes really, really good. So this is unreactable, and this is unreactable, and this is unreactable. So it becomes a true 50-50. And I like it better than Laws in a sense because it's not as unsafe. Because his launcher is not as unsafe as Laws. Wall standing 2 is -15, and up 4-3 is only -13. Full crouch down 4-2 is not launchable like Slide. It's only -13. And wall standing 3 is safe. So if you do wall standing 3, then you know they block it. Well, you know, try again another day. And if they do, well, you get a free mix-up. And if they fall down, you get a down 2-2. You can, like, train yourself to react to either one. So that'll be easy to confirm either into a combo or into a mix-up. Actually, I want to try something. I wonder if that works, too. Oops. Oh, I don't know. I don't think that works. But anyways, moving on. So, wall sliding 3 actually has a fault, which is wall sliding 3-2. You can avoid the second hit of wall sliding 3-2 if you hold down even on hit. It's very similar to forward 3-2. It's the same exact move, except wall forward 3 is 16 instead of 14. It's the exact same move, but it's different. Also knee, so it's a knee, so it's not parryable. So if the opponent tries to press buttons after your wall sliding 3, then you can actually do a mini backswing blow and get him with the warp strike. And the warp strike is actually steppable and it is punishable. The warp strikes out of move, so 4-3-2 and wall sliding 3-2, they are actually punishable at -11. So in that scenario, they're not safe warp strikes, but they're the exact same lead thing on hit. These are steppable, so if opponent knows you're gonna spam the warp strike after wall sliding 3-2, they could not even block punish, they could step in and launch you. So you have to be a little bit careful about that, since you still do the roll in if it's blocked. It's just -11 instead of being launch punishable. I mean, instead of being -9. So what you have here is your low poke that's really annoying. You have your launcher, that's your max reward option, but it's unsafe, and then you have your safe option wall sliding 3. Don't forget about your generic full crouch flows, because sometimes these are harder to recognize than full crouch down forward 2 because they're faster, especially full crouch down forward 4. But that is launch punishable, and so is full crouch 3, so you have to be careful about that. But I especially really like wall sliding 3 because of just how safe it is and how much advantage it can give you in neutral. You don't get the big hit of the up forward 3, but you get a lot of advantage. So you get to control neutral harder. You know, you get to dominate the game, flow of the match more. That's the basis to his full crouch mix-up. I'm gonna cover more what I think about some of the details in full crouch mix-up in a dedicated video. Some of the things I didn't talk about is his roll mix-up in depth. His roll mix-up is definitely not reactable, like you have to guess, but it is high risk, high reward. This is very punishable to people who have -14 launchers. It's also -14, so that's a pretty hard hit for something that's not launch punishable. The low is a knee, so it's not low parryable, but it is not even a slide punish. It is a true, like, you know, hell sweep kind of punish where it's like -40 or whatever, and you can launch that. So, and the roll itself does not track very well, so if I roll, eventually I'm going to go off axis if I want to do sidewalking. So, it goes very, very far across the screen. It's like kind of like reverse counter, which is ironic since it moves forward. So, you can use this as last-ditch attempts to get damage on the opponent because it is a guessing game as long as the opponent's not stepping it or interrupting it. Especially after back 1, it's kind of hard to see, so you kind of have to make a guessing game here. It's basically like throwing the dice and just like hopefully my mix-up works out. Also, if you hit the roll at the wall, it doesn't take Noctis behind them. You can do that and to that as long as the wall angle is clean. However, if the opponent's at an axis, the move can whiff like that, so you have to be really careful. This roll from Noctis has really, really poor alignment and tracking, so you have to be very, very, very careful about how you use it. Also, roll is decent on wake up, so if I do, let's say that, I can roll up on them and do something, but you are like, you know, what you calls it, liable to getting hit out of it. It's just like something that you can do on wake up. Also, after like warp try, you could do roll to force the mix up, or you know, whatever. So as long as your opponent is like linear getting up, then it's okay. Also, you can do scenarios where if you roll, you can get back turn. After this, back turn mix up, which he does have a back turn mix up. It's very, very minor. After back 4, which is a move you don't use too much, back 4 1+2 and back 3. He can do generic back turn down 3 and generic back turn down 4. And he has back turn 2, which is a natural hit launcher, which is safe on block 2, mid, -9. So that's really good. So he has this like, oh no, low poke, low poke, low poke. That's really minor. And then it's like, I'm tired of these low pokes. I'm gonna like block low or low parry and launcher. It's not the best thing because he only has one mix-up out of it, which is like, you know, the mid. But he doesn't have a back turn hop kick either. So, you know, he doesn't have back turn jabs, he has like weird back turn jabs. So if they get, you know, a smart person would probably not block low because of the just, you know, it doesn't give a lot of reward. But you can remember that back turn down 4, if it connects, it does lead into full crouch, and you do get a full crouch mix up, which Noctis does have. So very good. Nothing I really talk about. I'm gonna go quickly through his sample move. I mean the rest of the move list, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. I am gonna come out with a tutorial. Hope it's out already. That is gonna talk about his niche move, which there aren't many of them, but I'll briefly talk about the use of each move. 1, 2, 1+2. This can be delayed, and you can wall slide with this people. It's -9. It's slow, so you can get jabbed out of it, but it tracks pretty well. 1, 2, 3. Actually, I don't think this tracks that well. It tracks like to the right well, I think, but that's about it. So I think it loses the sidewalks pretty bad, especially if you delay. This is risky this is okay as long as your opponent doesn't know that you're gonna do it, because if your opponent knows that you're gonna do this, you can get delayed hop. You can get you know, launch for this, because it is technically really bad on block and on hit. On block it's delayed, it's punishable by delayed hot kick, and on hit it's punishable by regular launcher. This leads immediately to full crouch, and it does make some things whiff, as if your opponent tries to press like jabs immediately after 1, 2. So after that, you can do like a full crouch mix-up, since it does leave you in full crouch. 2, 2, 2 is a very, very interesting mix-up. This is probably one of his best tools for wall carrying in a combo. The first two are natural, 15 frame startup. These like normal frames like +6 on hit and like -8 on block. You can delay it into the rest of the string, like that, which is then it's mid, high, mid, last hit -14, and knocks down on normal hit. Which gives a mix-up, nothing guaranteed, but it gives a mix-up. Since the last 2 hits, I mean the last 3 hits besides the last hit are duckable, you can mix this in with 2-2, 4-2, and 2-2, back 2. Both of which are unsafe, so you have to be careful about that, but it is pretty good for mixing up. You can also 2-2 into nothing, or if the opponent's not ducking that last hit, you can like stop doing 2-2 anytime in the middle and just not do it. So it's not the best mix-up, but it is pretty ambiguous, but it's not the best frame-wise. 4-2, you don't use this in neutral, you only use this for combos pretty much. 1+2, I talked about already, talked about that already, talked about that already. This is the same thing as wall slide 3, except it's not as usable in the mid-game because he has better mids for poking, and this is really linear and it's slower. So while this has a little bit more range, this is more easier to hit because it comes from a mix-up stance. This is his primary wall splat move. It has a built-in delay, so actually from forward 4, he doesn't have the best frame data for block, but on hit it is +8, so that's really great. But it's -7 on block, I think. But because of the built-in delay, he doesn't. It's not like it's ambiguous whether he's going to continue it or not, and it is a natural combo. There's wall splats, but you have to be close to the wall splat. The second hit does track kind of okay, not the best, but okay. The first hit itself doesn't have the best tracking, and it is very good plus frames on hit, so you can use that pretty well for you know, mix up. This is a very risky with Punisher because it has tremendous range and it's very fast, 16 frames, but it's extremely bad on block, -25. So you can actually delayed hotkick this. And because it moves him forward, it makes him a lot easier to hit. This does wall splat pretty well. Also, this is probably one of the best things he can do for a wall ender because it does a lot of damage, but it does leave him super negative to the point where he can get hit by a toe kick on hit. But it is still really good in combos as for the wall. Generally, you don't want to use this too much. Sometimes you can use it on Oki, but it is just extremely risky to use. But it is fast, so sometimes the opponent has a difficult time reacting to it. This is the roll, 4-4. Shield bash, forward 1+2. This is a tower crush or wall splats, guarantees you a forward 1+2 afterwards. Also, you can get a wall running 1+2 afterwards. Pretty good. Decent, -14, I think, or -12, I think. Maybe -14, I don't remember. This is his down for 1. That's the thing. This is similar to 1+2, it's just safer. It doesn't track as well, but it is completely safe, and it starts off mid instead of being mid-high. I mean high-mid. But it does move you closer, and it is, it is walkable, so you have to be careful about that. Talked about that. This is mostly used for combos, but it's also really good for hitting low-profile people, and it's an unparryable sword. Both hits, the first hit is launch punishable, -3 on hit, and on second hit it's -9, and it's a lot on counter, so this is actually really good for counter hitting. It's the second counter hit tool, then down back up forward 1. But if you can duck the second hit and you can get launched for it, but it's ambiguous whether you will continue the first hit to the second hit, because there's kind of like a built-in delay. If you try to punish the first hit and the second hit comes out, you will get launched, since this is a screw attack on hit. That's the Heal Man. Talked about that already. Talked about that already. Talked about that already. Talked about that already. Talked about that. Talked about that. Talked about that. This is a move that I wish was better. It does lead into what calls it, the Just Ring, which is mashable, I believe. There we go. Which leaves +4 and is -9 on block by itself. So this move looks really cool. It does a lot of damage, +33, but there's not really a reason to use it. It also doesn't really track that well. So while it looks really cool and does a lot of damage, there's not really a reason to use it over the other mids. Back 3-1, Punisher, back turn. This is another back turn mixer, but it's slower. If you try to interrupt his back turn, the second hit will catch you, and it's counter launcher. It's the same exact counter launcher as down back 1+2, except this move on block, it's -13 with pushback, so that makes it pretty safe, but it is steppable. But if you hold back from the first back 4, you go into back turn, but it has more pushback, so it's harder to use the back turn mix-up mid-screen. Good at the wall though, because it does wall splat. This is his punch parry. Has a pretty big window. If you punch into it, he will automatically make the jab whiff, and he will knock you down, which gets guaranteed miss. Very good against punch characters like Giga, Steve, Bob, etc. It's pretty linear, and it's only -11, so that's a pretty good panic option for very jab happy people. This is unblockable. Talked about that already. This is an orbital heal. It's really slow compared to other orbitals, and it doesn't have as much low evasiveness, so it's harder to use, but it is good on Oki sometimes, especially if you jump cancel it, which is pressing up, forward, neutral, then 2. So you have to be, a little bit careful about how you use it, because it's not as good as other orbitals, because this is not as evasive, and it's slower, but it does give a lot of damage on it. Hop kick. This is his other home move, which is a low crush home move, which you can use that in case someone's like blowing you a lot, but it's a high hitting move, so probably use up 4 or 4-3 for that, but this is safe, so. It's also 19 frames, so this is a lot slower than it looks, unfortunately. It's actually his slowest home move, ironically. 4-4, you don't really use this in neutral that much. It is good at combos though, for setting up really good Oki. Because I'll talk more about the Okizemi video, but after 4-4-4, he has after 4-4-4 on hit, he has very similar Oki to his Warp Strike. Talk about that. Drop kick, you use this for wall breaks and for wall pressure because it does wall splat. But it's harder to use, but it's really good for whiff punishing when an opponent's near the wall. Wall 1+2, and jump. Don't worry about the jump attacks too much. They're mostly used for adjusting combo, they're not really used in neutral. Except for jump 1+2, this is pretty much wall running 1+2, but from the air. It's not as plus, and it's slower obviously, but it is pretty good. It's grounded too. It doesn't launch on normal hit either. Talk about that. Oh yeah, you can use this for crouch too, if you want. Talk about that, talked about that, talked about that. 10 hit. Oh yeah. His Oki, his 2-throw reverses positions, both on hit and on success and on break, so that's really good. 1-throw just spaces out. 1-throw is good Oki because it leaves them face down, so you can, and in front of you, so you can do some pretty decent Okizemi stuff there. His 1+2 throw sends them really far back, so you can set up a wall running mix-up here. So you can do like that. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to do it here. You can do like that or whatever, You can do approach mix-up basically, wig up mix-up. And his side throws are the same thing. His back throw leaves them downed, and he has a parry, which is highs, mids, everything besides, the normal stuff, and swords. So he can parry punches, kicks, and swords, but not knees, elbows, head, shoulders, etc. It's a flat damage scaling, so that means it knocks down its wall splat, but you need to be really close for it to wall splat effectively, and you can't do Demo Man after you wall splat with it because the recovery is too slow. But it is a flat damage scaling of 30, and it knocks down all the time. It knocks down at the perfect positioning for like a Warp Strike Oki. Oops. Oh, come on. Wow. does 30, and then leaves them right there, so it's pretty similar to Warp Strike's Okuzeme. So if they try to get up, you can do that, or you can dash right down by 2, dash right down by 1+2, try to side roll, down back, side step down by 2, and etc, etc. So, that's all Noctis' move list. I'm still going to do the niche tutorial so I can talk more about the mix-ups of the other moves in depth and their uses. But that's Noctis for you in a nutshell. I'm gonna talk, if you want to learn about combos, I'm gonna have a whole video dedicated to showing Noctis' combos and adjustments through wall and stuff. I'll explain everything. And I'll talk about his wall game, his full crouch mix-up in full detail, and his niche moves, some anti-Noctis stuff, and the best ways to deal with poor Noctis situations, such as dealing with situations that are bad for Noctis. And maybe more than that. So, in conclusion, Noctis is a great whiff punish character who has a lot of ways to make opponents make mistakes. He has great holding moves, probably amongst the best whiff punish in the game, just certainly amongst the best range in the game in general. But his best moves are kind of slow, his tracking is really poor, his range 0 is not so good, his backdash is poor, his sidestep is okay, Okuzeme is pretty good. He has to take risks to create big damage fast. And he is pretty unsafe if you tend to play him high reward, so you have to be a little bit careful about that, especially against -14 launcher characters. And you just have to be very cautious about when you use things, because he can be very destructive to yourself if you choose to use the wrong moves at the wrong time. So when you play Noctis, you gotta be Tekken. You know, you can't just fool around. You can't like autopilot things. You have to be very, very conscious of his options and such and so forth. But I do think he's a pretty decent character. I just think that, you know, he has his pretty, you know, strenuous weaknesses, and he's got some pretty great strengths. He's kind of balanced in my opinion. He's a middle of the road kind of character. Without further ado, thank you guys for watching. I'll leave the link to all the rest of the videos afterwards, and check them out. Check out Arcade Impact. Thank you for supporting me. And thank you guys for watching so much. If you watched the whole thing, I'll probably split this into 2 videos, but in case I don't, I'll see you guys next time on whatever. You guys have a good day.